Welcome to the Monday Football Talks 4133 YouTube channel here. Tonight, it's Monday Night Football, a battle of the two Texas teams today, the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys from Jerry's World at AT&T Stadium. I'm going to be talking a lot about that, and also going to be talking about my college football top 25. You're probably going, what about the games from yesterday? I'll be breaking that down a lot more tomorrow on Tuesday's video. We're going to talk a lot about tonight's game, Texans-Cowboys, and my college football top 25. Let's start with the Texans versus the Cowboys tonight. 8:15 p.m. on ABC and ESPN. The Texans this year coming in on the 6-4 on the season. Well, Dallas sits in at 3-6. An interesting game here tonight, definitely to say the least. I think we definitely looked at the beginning of this year and said this could be one of the best games of the year. And now where we are at, it looks both teams need this game tonight. Let's start off with the Texans here. They're 6-4, like we said, but they're on a 2-game losing streak. They lost 2 weeks ago at the Jets on Halloween on Thursday night, and last week on Sunday Night Football against the Detroit Lions, which they should have won. Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions last weekend. The Texans could not capitalize on those Lions turnovers. Jared Goff threw 50%, C.J. Stroud, though, he also had 2 interceptions last week as well. It wasn't like, the Lions just had every turnover and Houston had nothing. There was still parts of this game where the Texans didn't look good at all. And it was kind of a sloppy game, and overall they had a great shot to win it. But the Lions won on a game-winning field goal in that one. 50, and it wasn't like this was a chip shot. It was a 52-yard field goal for the win. It wasn't like the Lions just barely... had to give it to them. The 5 interceptions, a 52-yard field goal for the win. Houston should have won this football game. But let's go over to Dallas a little bit, because Dallas needs to be talked a lot more right now. Let's start off here for the Cowboys. They have not won a game since October 6th when they beat the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. You should look back at that game and go, wow, that's actually a great win. The Steelers now 8-2. They beat the Ravens yesterday. Since then, lost 47-9 against the Lions. Went in the bye week. Came out of the bye week. Lost to the Niners by 6. Lost to the Cowboys by 6. And lost by 28 to Philadelphia. Dallas is just not as good as they used to be. The season starts to feel over here for this Cowboys team. This dominating run since 2016 of making the playoffs almost every year, being a great regular season team. They can't do anything in the postseason, but in the regular season, this team was amazing. They only missed the playoffs, I believe, 1 year. That was in 2020, but they still nearly made the playoffs. This Cowboys team is just done for. Dak Prescott's out for the year, and it's not like, oh, Dak Prescott's out for the year. This team's just not good. This team's just not good overall. The running game is terrible. You trade away Tony Pollard. Or excuse me, you let Tony Pollard leave. Ezekiel Elliott really is your star running back, I guess you could say, this year. I don't know if star is the right word. I guess now it's starting to look at Rico Dallas starting to step up, but still, he's not doing anything. He doesn't have a touchdown this year. This wide receiver room, CeeDee hasn't done the most this year. He hasn't done a lot. No one else from the wide receivers have done anything. The O-line doesn't look very good. When they played the Philadelphia Eagles last week, Dak Prescott got sacked once. Excuse me, not Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was out. They got sacked 3 times in this game and got tackled for losses many times. This Dallas team is just not good. And the defense, in their last 4 games, the lowest amount of points they've allowed is 27 points. I'm just reading off stats that make you go, this team must have never been a good team. They won the division last year. They were the 2 seed in the NFL last season, in the NFC. The Dallas team is not as good as they once were. They're going to play a hard Houston Texans team tonight. This game could get ugly fast. It really could. Let's move back over to Houston now. C.J. Stroud has had a pretty solid year overall. They're 1-3 in their last 4, so they would really like to get this win tonight. But they're still a great team. They've beaten the Bills this year. They've beaten teams. They beat the Colts. They're a 500 team right now. They're a tough team. They also know how to just beat teams. Something Dallas has not been able to do, which the Texans in their losses, they got blown out by the Vikings. Lost by 2 against the Packers. lost by 8 against the Jets, lost by 3 against. They lose a lot of close games, but they're still a good team. They're still number 1 in the AFC South, so you need to respect that. I expect Dallas to look terrible tonight because Mike McCarthy is not a good coach. Jerry Jones doesn't know what he's doing as his Cowboys ownership. I expect this to be ugly. The line is Houston's at 7-point favorite, and that might be generous, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how Dallas is going to be able to handle this Houston Texans team tonight. This Texans team, Stroud's had a solid year. He could have even played better last year, but he's not playing terrible. The rushing games looked good. Joe Mixon, I mean, he's been out for a few games, but he's looked pretty good this year. You have Nico Collins, who's been pretty good this year. Stephon Diggs, sadly, now out for the year, though. But the defense has looked pretty good this year. This Texans team is there. They know what they need to get done. They're still here, and they're still ready to play football. For my prediction tonight here, this is obviously a bit short of a podcast. We're not breaking down every NFL Sunday game. I'm going with the Texans tonight, and I think they're going to win this game by about 3 scores. And this isn't an understatement. Yesterday, I said that the Lions were going to beat the Jaguars by 50 points. They only won by 46. And it was a joke. I said Lions by 50. And they won by 46. I think Houston wins this game by 3 scores tonight. Let's move in now to my college football top 25. Tomorrow, the college football committee will give their rankings. But I'm going to give you guys mine tonight because tomorrow we'll be breaking down all of the NFL stuff on that podcast. So let's go to my top 25. Let's start off at number 1. I have the Oregon Ducks. This is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, this team has looked amazing all year. They're coming off of a close game against Wisconsin on Saturday. But they still look good. They still look like a great team. Dylan Gabriel's still having a great year with this team. And overall, this Oregon team is just the best in the country right now, in my opinion. Because you look at the undefeated teams. Oregon, Army, and Indiana. Out of those 3, who do you think should be number 1 in the country? Obviously, Oregon. Oregon's beaten Ohio State. They've got some good wins under the belt. And they look good. Number 2, I've got the Ohio State Buckeyes. The only reason they're not number 1, Oregon beat them. Got to respect the head-to-head here. Number 3, Texas. Their one loss this year is to Georgia. They're still a good team. They're coming off of a shaky 10-point win over Arkansas, but they're still a good team. Quinn Ewers is still having a great year. Bond's having a great year. This Texas team is still a deep threat for to win the national title this year. They have a great roster, great team. They're ready to play football. Number 4, I've got Penn State. Penn State's kind of the same way as Texas, except actually kind of flip it. Texas, I think, has a phenomenal offense, and the defense is pretty good, like a very above-average defense, but the offense is what really carries it. For me, Penn State's the opposite. They have one of the best defense, maybe the best defense in the country, in my opinion, and a pretty good offense, like a great offense. But they have an elite, arguably the best team in the country, defense. They're only lost to Ohio State, so you got to respect the head-to-head as well. Number 5, I have Indiana. And you're going to go, they're undefeated. People are still disrespecting them. Say what you want. Until this Indiana team, because they're going to play Ohio State on Saturday. If Indiana beats Ohio State on Saturday, I'll jump them up to 2. And I'll say it here, you can hear me quote this right now. If Indiana beats Ohio State on Saturday, they are the second best team in the country, behind Oregon. Because we're not taking them seriously. Because let me explain why, right? Who has Indiana, though, really played this year? Let's dive deep real quick. Who is Indiana's best win this year? You look at the schedule. Nebraska, Michigan State. They're all kind of middle-of-the-pack teams. Nebraska doesn't have that special team that just makes that was just a huge win. Compared to teams like Oregon, who beat Ohio State, who beat Penn State, Texas, who beat so a bunch of great teams, really. They don't have that team yet. They don't have that win under their belt yet that really significantly shows that they're that good of a team. And they're going to play Ohio State on Saturday. If they beat Ohio State on Saturday, you're coming off the bye. You don't have any injuries. There are no excuses It's at the Shoe. If you win this game, I'll bump you up to 2. But until Indiana does that, I'm not going to send them up. And people are going to go, well, look at their average margin victory. Because they haven't played anybody. I would say their best win right now is Nebraska. Yes, Nebraska. Nebraska or Washington. Michigan's 500. That's not a great win. I don't know. Number 6, I have Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they can be top 5 very soon. They arguably are number 1. I would say they're a top 3 team in the country if they didn't lose to Northern Illinois. Since they lost in week 2 game to Northern Illinois, they've looked elite. They really have. They've got some great wins. Louisville, they just took business against Virginia. This Notre Dame team is still a good team in my opinion. They're still a team, they're still a threat, and you have to watch out for them. Number 7, I'm going with Ole Miss. Now, 7 through 10, there's a lot of different ways you could shuffle this. And in my eyes, there's 3 ways you can go. And all 3 of them has Ole Miss at 7. And let me explain why. So, let's break it down here. Ole Miss just beat Georgia 2 weeks ago by 18 points. Right? That is a huge win. That is your best win of the year by far. Who are their 2 losses to? LSU and Kentucky. LSU was on the road tonight. Kentucky was a bad loss at home in September. So what am I saying here? You look at those 2 losses. They have not aged well, especially the LSU loss. Because at first I was like, all right, that's what it is. But it still is. I mean, it's Death Valley at night. It was loud. It wasn't like Ole Miss got blown out. It went to overtime. They lost by 3. They're still there. They're both losses only by 3 points. It's not like Ole Miss's 2 losses are these blowout losses. The problem is the Kentucky loss, in my opinion. Because you have to win that. Then you look at that, though, and you go, Georgia nearly lost to Kentucky as well. So, Ole Miss, I have it 7. Now, the other 3, 8, 9, and 10, between Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee, is the other 3. There's 4 SEC teams in 4 straight spots. The first way you can go is you can go Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. The second way you can go is Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. Number 3 is Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. I think I said the 3 right there, right? Pretty much you can shuffle them in any three-way order you want, and you have the argument. In my eyes, number 8, Alabama, number 9, Georgia, number 10, Tennessee. There's not a right answer for these 3 teams in order. You're going to go, well, look at that. Tennessee beat Bama. It doesn't matter. Tennessee lost to Georgia. Georgia lost to Alabama. Alabama lost to Tennessee. It's a cycle there. Ole Miss didn't lose to Tennessee or Bama. They didn't play them. They played 1 team out of those 3, and they beat them. So you have to put them ahead. But now let's look at the losses. Bama's 2 losses this year. Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Georgia's 2 losses. Alabama and Ole Miss. Tennessee's 2 losses. Arkansas and Georgia. So the worst loss here, it's an up for grab between the Vanderbilt and Arkansas. And they were both on the same day, just about 4 hours apart. So wow, this is really tricky. Let's dive in a little bit more deeper here. Let's think. Alabama. All right, let's think. Maybe it's the home field. Did any of these teams on the road? Did Alabama beat Georgia on the road? No. Did Georgia beat Tennessee on the road? No. Did Tennessee beat Alabama on the road? No. So that comes out of it. See, because you can really make an argument for all 3 of these teams in order. Now here's what I've got. Number 8, Alabama, 9, Georgia, 10, Tennessee. I think you need to still respect that Alabama is ahead of Georgia because they beat them this year, and I just think it makes sense. The most sense is to put Bama ahead of Georgia because 2 weeks ago they went into Death Valley and destroyed them on a Saturday night football game when College Game Day was in LSU, and it was loud. And they still blew him out. Jalen Miller puts the team on his back and dominated the game. So that means Georgia's at 9 because they lost to Alabama and they beat Tennessee. Because that game was 2 nights ago. So you're going to have to respect that. Now you're going, well, why is Tennessee not ahead of Bama? Here's what I've got for it. When Tennessee played Alabama, it was a very close game. Bama did not play well in general. I thought they were just not really in it. Well, excuse me, no, not necessarily in a score-wise, and more of a, they just had a lot of dumb mistakes that they made that Nick Saban would have cleaned up. I still think that Alabama should be ahead of these two. Because that win against LSU, and you're going to go, well, LSU's out of the top 25 right now, which is true. They just got blown out. They just lost to Florida by 11 points 2 nights ago. But LSU is still a good team, and you still need to talk about it. So I've got Alabama at 8, Georgia 9, Tennessee 10. That's how I think it should go. There's not really a right answer with those three. I just think Ole Miss needs to be ahead because they beat the one team out of those three. The head-to-head with Alabama and Ole Miss, there really is none with them and Tennessee as well. So I would give Ole Miss the edge in front of the three. They go Bama, Georgia, Tennessee. Number 11, I have Miami. Miami has 1 loss this year to Georgia Tech. And it was a noon game on ESPN 2 weeks ago. There's an interesting thing about this. Is you're going, well, why are they not ahead of these 4 SEC schools? They all have 2 losses. Let me tell you something. You look at Miami's season right now, right? Right? They are 9-1, but you look at their games. They should have lost to Virginia Tech. It was a dumb call. That should have been a loss. That wasn't like, oh, they just got a great... No, I thought Virginia Tech caught that football, and they said that it was... Whatever. They came back being down, I believe, 20-some points. I forget how many exactly off the top of my head. But I believe they were down by 20-plus points against Cal and won by a point. Cal is 5-5. They lost to Florida State, who's got 1 win this year. They won 52-45 against Louisville. They were losing to Duke at one point. They've had a lot of really close games this year, and then they finally lost to Georgia Tech. They have Wake Forest, Syracuse to close out the year. They've got that shot. They're going to be in the ACC title game. And it's going to come down to probably them versus SMU for the 3 spot. But I just think the SEC losses, Ole Miss has promising wins. 63 against Arkansas. Beat Georgia by 18. Alabama, they've been throwing teams around. Georgia's been throwing teams around. Tennessee's been throwing teams around. Miami, not really. Number 12, Boise State. They're coming off of allowing a lot of high scoring, a lot of points allowed against San Jose State. So that kind of ruins it a little bit for them. They are a borderline top 10 team, though. You look back and go, well, they have a loss next time. That loss is to the number 1 team in the country in Oregon, which Oregon had to hit a game-winning field goal. They lost by 3 points in that game. It was there. 13 BYU. And I have 13 BYU, 14 SMU. You're going, I would put SMU ahead of BYU. If you say that, you're done. BYU beat SMU this year back in week 2. You may forget about it. It was a Friday night football game back in week 2. We were watching that game and going, whatever. What does it really matter? Back on September 6th. Does it really matter? Whatever. You look back at that game and go, wow. That game had so much implications. Because there is a chance if Colorado were to beat BYU in the title game and Miami beats SMU in the title game, it might come down to these 2 teams for that final spot, and you're going to have to go head-to-head and give it to BYU. So I got BYU 13, SMU 14. I still BYU, they're coming off that loss against Kansas. I thought that was actually going to happen. I predicted BYU to win, but I actually had a feeling that was going to happen. 15, I had Colorado. I'm moving them up the boards here. You look at some things this year, and you go, you're kind of strange, but you're also going, all right, that makes sense. Colorado is just coming off of a dominating win over Utah. They were playing at 10 in the morning, local time. It was a very early game. I know it was an early game for Utah as well, at the same time, so you're thinking, all right, it's probably going to be a lower scoring game. They're probably going to be more on the, not asleep, but, more tired-ish. It's an earlier game. But they scored 49 points. The offense looks amazing. Travis Hunter's unstoppable. Shedeur Sanders looked great. They had a punt return touchdown. This Colorado team's still great. 16, I have A&M. They're a good team. They've got some bad losses, like South Carolina. They should have beat South Carolina. So I don't really have much to say here. They're just kind of there. 17, I've got Army. undefeated. You're probably going, why are they not going up the list? Kind of with Indiana in a way. Who has Army really beat? Let's take a look here. Who has Army really beat? And they play Notre Dame on Saturday night at Yankee Stadium. That's going to be awesome. So, going back to this now. So, who is their best win against? I'm looking at it. Maybe, I don't even know, Air Force? They don't have a very big win. They beat, I'm just going to go off their schedule real quick for you. Lehigh, FAU, Rice, Temple, Tulsa, UAB, East Carolina, Air Force, North Texas are their wins. It's nothing good at all. That's nothing crazy. I would say their best win is East Carolina. Like, they just don't really have that signature. But they play Notre Dame Saturday night. It's going to be a great game. And if they can beat Notre Dame, they are a college football playoff team. They are. 18, I've got Clemson. They still have some bad losses. They just nearly beat Pittsburgh on Saturday. Because Cade Klubnik put the game on his back and had a 50-yard rushing touchdown win. Clemson's just not the same as they are. You know why? Because they don't use the transfer portal. There's 4 teams in the country that do not use the transfer portal. Army, Navy, and Air Force, because they can't. The Air Force academies, you cannot use the transfer portal. And Clemson. You have to use the transfer portal. You do. It's how college football is now. And if until they use it, Clemson will not be the same. 19, I have Arizona State. And you're going, whoa, that's a jump. Can we just talk about this Arizona State team real quick? Saturday night, went into Kansas State, a ranked team's house, and dominated them. Dominating them. And then you're going to go with a 10-point win. They were up 21-0 at halftime. They were up 24-0 in the third quarter. They're 8-2. Their 2 losses this year: Texas Tech by 8 and Cincinnati by 10. Not the best losses, but you gotta respect that they're 8-2, and they've got some good wins under their belt. So I respect it. It's a great team. Number 20, South Carolina. Gamecocks, they've definitely stuck to the air. Coming off a great little win over Missouri, had a late touchdown with just 20 seconds left. Am I buying on the hype for them to get in the college football playoff? I might be. So I think they will. No, I think they're just going to be left out. But I do think they are definitely in the right step. They're just a few field goals away from being way better on record-wise as well. I still think we need to look out for the South Carolina team in the near future. Maybe not necessarily this year with the playoff, but definitely in the years to come. 21, I have Tulane. They might be, you could argue that this Tulane team might soon be depending what happens this Saturday and what happens in Conference Championship weekend, Tulane could end up being the number 1, the best Group of 5 team. And it would shock a lot of people if this happens. But there is a shot that Tulane can get in the playoff. You need Boise State to fumble one away, say or so. And they're going to play Army in the American Athletic Title game. That's set. That's what they need. That's the American Athletic Title game. That's set. Army versus Tulane in a few weeks from now. And remember, that Army versus Navy game at the end of the year doesn't count towards the college football playoff, because the college football playoff rankings and the bracket will drop. Then the following weekend's the Army-Navy game. That's just for fun. It goes on your records, but it doesn't affect how the playoff works or anything like that. So Tulane, if they can beat Army in the American Athletic Title game, Boise State maybe fumbles 1 or 2 away. Really just need to fumble 1, maybe in the conference title game. They might be in. Because listen, it's the top 5 highest conference winners. Boise State loses in the conference title game because it's probably going to be them versus UNLV. UNLV at 22, I'll just say it now. I am right behind Tulane. Boise State coughs it up to Tulane. To UNLV. Tulane beats Army. Next thing we know, Tulane's the highest rated Group of 5 school, and they're in. So it's still, there's a path there for them. Their 2 losses are Kansas State and Oklahoma, which they barely lost. They were 22 on UNLV. They lost to Boise State earlier this year, but they gave it a great fight. They're still a good team, though. You actually look and you go, wow, they deserve to be back in this top 25. They're a great team. They're coming off with a nice win on Saturday night. 41-20 over San Diego State. They're 8-2. They're back in this thing. right? You look at their 2 losses this year, and they lost 41-44 in overtime against Syracuse on a Friday night game, and versus number 17 Boise State at the time, 29-24. 5-point loss and a 3-point loss. They have not lost on a Saturday. It's crazy to think about, but it's true. They haven't lost on a Saturday yet. So just keep winning on Saturdays, and they're good to go. 23. I have Memphis. Bring the team back in. They just dropped, 58 points last night? You confirm that real quick? Yeah, 53-18 win over UAB last night. This Memphis team should be back in the top 25. I looked at the AP poll to them. They actually had some votes. I actually was going to put this in here. I thought everyone was going to go, what are you talking about? They got some votes, so it's not as crazy as I thought this pick was going to be. But they're still there. They're still a great team, in my opinion. And they won't be in the American Athletic title game, so I don't think they're going to be in the college football playoff. But they've got a good resume for a nice bowl game. 24 at Iowa State brought them back into the top 25. This team was at what? 10th in the country at one point? Something almost at 10. But some bad losses. But they get a nice win over Cincinnati 2 nights ago. So I think it was a good win over Cincinnati at home. But they're not. It's nothing crazy. Here's also the thing, though. This is the beauty of how the Big 12 is so chaotic. Colorado can slip up a game. Basically, Iowa State's back in the Big 12 title game, and if they win, they're probably in the playoff. At 25, I have Washington State. You're keeping them in. And I am. I am keeping them in. Why should I keep them in? Because they're 8-2, and they've got a nice win under their belt against Washington in the Apple Cup earlier this year. They lost by 3 points to New Mexico last night on the road and lost to Boise State. And they also beat Texas Tech this year. It's not like they haven't played anybody. They've got some nice wins. They're still a good team, in my opinion. And yeah, I think they deserve to be on the top 25. In my top 25. So those are my top 25 college football. My top 25. And also my Monday Night Football predictions. I got the Texans over the Cowboys by 3 scores, like I said. And yeah, that'll wrap it up here for our Monday YouTube from Football Talks 4133. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking about all the NFL from the weekend. Start to look ahead at the college football slate next week probably on Wednesday, and also some NFL and stuff. It should be a really fun week. And yeah, peace.